So welcome to the actual production chapter. So in this chapter, I will walk you through the look development, shading, and texture work of the main character. And for the following couple lessons, I'll also be talking about some of the spaceship shading and Unreal Environment basic. It's some sort of like a basic introduction to the Unreal Engine. So the character asset is done by Ben Arrett, a character artist on ArtStation, and he has his great portfolio on ArtStation, so please make sure to check out his website. And he also shares this rig for free on his website. This is where you can download this character asset and for you to follow this whole tutorial. And this character comes in with the PBR workflow based texture, so we need to convert it into a V-Ray offline render workflow. That's what I'll be covering from this and the next lesson. And the rigging is actually done by Perry Layton. I'm sorry, I still mispronounce your names. So please make sure to check out their website as well. Also, I use this creature done by Vikaza in my film, but I won't be covering this creature in this tutorial. Just to give a heads up, like if you want to use their character in your own project, please check with them, like in terms of the copyright and stuff. And I'm pretty sure it's for free as long as it's not for commercial use. Okay, let's take a look at this character rig. This character rig is just a standard humanoid biped rigging. One thing to notice is that I have experienced some of the issue when I'm animating this character rig. I have some crashes if I'm in viewport 2.0. So if you want to do animations, probably it's better just to switch back to a legacy viewport. As you can see, this rig has a full IK and FK switch for the limbs, and there's a shoulder control. Here's the things, like the shoulder control, now the parent workspace is in the chest, meaning like when you rotate the shoulder control, the upper arm won't actually rotate with the shoulders. So I prefer this way, but there's no switch. If you want, you may have to create your own locator to switch the apparent workspace. Also, there's a full IK and FK both system for the spines and torso. I personally prefer to use FK for the torso, just easier to control, and IK because you have to deal with translation and rotation. So basically speaking, this is a very standard humanoid production ready creature rig. And there's no facial control for this creature except for some jaw open and close. I think there's some eye control as well, but that's pretty much it. And because it's a creature, I assume the concept was sort of like a lizard, sort of a reptile kind of creature, so we don't really need much of the facial muscle movements. But later on, I think in the final shot in my project, I actually did some customized blend shape just to give a little breathing, like the nose and some of the face movement. And there are 4 different kind of presets for this character. You can see we can turn on and off the pads and some of the armors. That's pretty much it. So next step is we're gonna do a little look dev lighting setup for this character. So as I mentioned before, I do all the look dev and lighting shading in 3D Studio Max. Here we need to export all the models that we need to 3D Studio Max through Olympic. I personally prefer to use Olympic because it's just more reliable. FBX works as well if you want. And make sure to click UV right workspace and brighter visibility when exporting to Olympics. Okay, well, once the model is exported, let's go back to 3D Studio Max. Here I'm going to show you my workflow of creating a HDRI image-based lighting look dev environment. Basically, I'm just going to use a V-Ray dome light and attach it with the HDRI image, so we can check the shader and the shading while we're tweaking like the materials. So let's just import the model first. Let's just Let's just put it all into gray because it looks better. And then we're gonna create a V-Ray light. We go to V-Ray tab, and when we create a V-Ray light for HDRI image-based lighting, we'd better to use a dome light. So go to Lighting tab, select V-Ray light, and make sure type is at dome, and then we just click Create a Dome Light. Then we press M to open the material editor, or you can just go on top of the shelf button. Then we go back to the Lighting tab. We click the Texture. Once we clicked it, we go down to V-Ray HDRI. Where is it? Here. Then we don't necessarily need to pick the texture right now. We just drag into material so we can use this node for some other places. And I think I've included a HDRI image in the project folder. So if you can navigate to it, you'll find this HDRI. And this is a more of like a studio lighting situation where you can check the reflection of the armors better. You see there's like one key light and there's a wall reflecting there's a wall bouncing the light back to the whatever the object is. So once we select the HDRI, we need to use this HDRI node for the viewport background and also the environmental rendering background. So when we rotate this HDRI, when we rotate this HDRI, we can just check in also viewport and also in the rendering. So we open Environment Effect tab, you can press 8, and we drag that node, drop on top of the background color. And we press Alt and B. And here we can use the viewport background, use the environment background. So as you can see, now we have set up this HDRI image for the viewport, for the lighting, and for the light. So now if we render, we can also render the background light, and we can also check in the viewport. And when we rotate this HDRI in the HDRI in the material editor, all three places will be in sync. And then we can just check how the lighting setup is working. When I'm doing the look development, I prefer to use the V-Ray RT because it's faster, it's pretty much the real time, and once we get to like 90% in RT, I will go back to ADV to double check. Sometimes of the bump and normal map, they will have discrepancies between RT and ADV mode. So it's better to check between these two once you get 80 or 90% finished in terms of the shading. And then we just set up the resolution and ready to click the render. Now let's click the render. So now you can see this whole scene is lit by this HDRI image that we just set up. And if we rotate in the material editor, rotate this HDRI node, the whole lighting will change. You can see we can rotate the key light to the back. And because we're dealing with a sort of metallic reflective surface, so it's always better to have a strong key light HDRI so we can check the specular highlight glossiness better later on when we apply the shader. So this is the first lighting setup. In the next lesson, we'll be talking about how to use a V-Ray layered blend material to set up the body shader.
学习过程中还有疑问，可以立即加入正版课程的学习交流群，讲师实时在线答疑，与精英学员互相学习。还可以登录一湖网，点击任意课程网址，搜索课程 ID 号，获取完整学习课件、工程文件等资料。扫一扫，任何问题小美湖都能帮助你啦。